Welcome to Elefant Roses. My name is Katie. As the title of the video shows, last year I stopped going to the grocery store except for every 2 months. Previous to that, I'd been going every month. That's the way I've always done it my whole life. Grew up in the rural Midwest where grocery stores are far and few between. And so what started this? In November of 23, I went to the grocery store and the groceries had just exploded. They were bad up to that point, but they really went bad that month. My grocery budget would have doubled if I would have got everything on the list. Thankfully, I had tools and I'd been doing things up until that point, so I knew right there on the spot what was in my pantry. I knew meals that our family liked and knew the ingredients because they were in my phone, but they're also in my head because I made them so many times. Anybody else in that boat? You make the same recipe so many times, you can do it in your sleep. So I ended up spending twice as long in the grocery store because I literally was just, the list was useless. There was no way I could get it all. So I just was like, the budget is the budget. You can't move the budget. That's just how it works. So I came home from that trip. We had some very strange meals. I'm just going to say out loud, we had some very strange meals. And so I knew I had to come up with a plan for December because the groceries were just going to keep going up. I looked at news articles, I did all that, and scared myself to death too. So sat down. I know my vocation in life is taking care of people. That's what I always do. That's what God made me to do. Mom of four, I've taken care of everybody my whole life. That is my vocation, and I'm very good at my vocation. And so I just did a lot of praying and a lot of scripture reading and looking through cookbooks and everything, trying to come up with menus, because I thought maybe I should move to a menu plan. Normally, I know that I have these basic ingredients and I can make this whole list of recipes. But I thought, okay, all the menu people, maybe they got a better plan. So I looked at that. I was like, that is not going to work for my family. Because, I have one that is dealing with some health issues. So there's some days where he just wants to eat soup. Doesn't care about any other food. He just wants soup. And I can't blame him. So I was like, that menu planning is not going to work. So I was like, I just have to stay with my original plan. I just got to be really savvy and really smart. And I've got to take it one more step. Normally, I don't look at sales flyers. I just don't pay attention to them. I just go to the store. I look for the good deals. I go to Aldi. I go to a couple of other local grocery stores here. But normally, it's Aldi for everything. And so what I ended up doing is going through all the sales flyers. And I spent all of November doing that because I went the first week in November. So I went through all of them for all those weeks, and I always keep a price book. I expanded my price book so that I can compare all the different stores. In December, I hit multiple stores. I took out Google Maps because I was like, I'm going to waste a ton of gas if I can't get these grocery stores compacted. Even if something was a really good deal, if it meant I had to go 20 miles, which where I live in the Northeast would mean over an hour in the car with the car idling, too much gas. Not going to do it. It wouldn't help the budget. It would make the gas budget go up. So I came with that plan for December. And in December, I saw the prices even higher than they were in November. And I was like, I've got to expand the plan. And so for Christmas, I scaled everybody back. Everybody got presents. Nobody got major presents. Everybody got basic presents. I started looking for a freezer. Living in the Northeast, I live in a little apartment, 700 square feet. I am limited by what I can buy by my freezer. I have a 3.5 cubic freezer, which is normal in a American freezer. When you have the fridge on the bottom and freezer on top, you probably have a 3.5 cubic foot freezer. And one thing that's very limited me since I moved from the Midwest to the Northeast is not having my freezer. And you can see what I bought with our extra Christmas money right there. I started price comparing and everything for a chest freezer. More than I can find things marked down on sale, in clearance, etc. at these stores, but I always am limited by that 3.5 cubic foot freezer, which is over there. This is my kitchen annex. I live in a very tiny apartment. This is technically the dining room I'm standing in, by the way, to give you a little idea of where I'm at. This apartment is super tiny. It's 700 square feet. Some parts of this apartment make no sense. I have a wall of kitchen cabinets I can show you that are useless. Unless you want a wall of glassware, not going to help you. You can't put even a dessert plate in those cupboards. They're that shallow and narrow. So those are my cleaning cupboards. And this little annex that they call a dining room is not big enough to put a table for 4 people in. It's big enough for a table for 2, and that's it. So another cost savings behind me is 2 grill scars from IKEA, and then that is a cabinet from IKEA that reminds me of an old meat locker. If you ever saw one of those. And so I got that and put it on top. I did not pay full price for any of this. IKEA's as-is section is the greatest thing ever. So you can get stuff 40 to 60% off if you go in there. So that's where all of this came from. And what I'm standing in front of is the only thing I ever paid full price for. This is the most expensive piece of furniture I've had, and you'll be able to see in a few minutes when I do an overhead shot. It's an island, but it's got storage underneath it. So I gained counter space, which I don't have in the normal kitchen. The normal kitchen has 2 counters this big on either side of the sink. And then I've got one this big on the one side of the stove and one that side on the other side of the stove. I make everything from scratch. Anybody who bakes, you know what I mean. You can't roll out anything on counters that tiny. So my grill scar has been my counter. And then I gained this extra counter space plus storage. So this little annex, kitchen annex is what I call it. This is where I do a lot of my prep work, a lot of cooking, etc. So in future videos, I'll do a walk around of everything and show you, because that's part of the whole plan I came up with. I needed storage here, because my plan was when I found something on sale, clearance, etc., we were buying it. I was also going to start doing wholesale. In 2024, I tried Azure 3 times because I only have 3 days that I'm allowed to take off of my job without giving at least a 5-day notice. If you've done Azure, you know that they say it's going to come between Monday and Saturday, and you don't know which day in there. And my job doesn't let me do something like that. I've only got 3 flex days that allow me that ability. So I plan to use those 3 flex days this coming year for Azure when they hold like a sale or something where I can really stock up. My first Azure haul was really small. I wanted to test things, see what our family liked, what they didn't like, and then the second haul was just to grab more of what they did like and try a few more items, and then the last one was just to grab the stuff that the family really liked in a bigger quantity. And that was before I had even more storage than I do now. I didn't move. I'm still in the same apartment. I just had to revamp the apartment to make more storage room so I could buy in bigger quantities. With cutting back the Christmas budget, I was able to buy this freezer. I don't normally do credit cards. I don't believe in debt. But the place I bought it, they had it on sale for just over $200. And then if I took out their credit card, I got X amount off. So when it was all said and done with taxes, the freezer came in at $150. Thought that was a great bonus. Would have wasted that money at the grocery store with the sky-high grocery prices in November. So I thought I was doing good. I had budgeted for it, and I was able to pay cash for it. And after I got the freezer home, I canceled the credit card. Never used it, nothing. I just canceled it right away. So that was part of my saving grace, was the freezer. I was able to, now when I found like cream marked down to $1, for a container because it was on edge, the last date, I could bring it home and freeze it. If you didn't know, you can freeze cream, you can freeze butter, you can freeze milk, you can freeze just about everything, cheese, etc. So the freezer is our saving grace for that. I can freeze yogurt. Yeah, you can freeze just about everything. And so that's what we did. Um, and one of the reasons and then I started shopping, I tried Sam's Club and Costco. Costco is closer, so for gas, Costco is what we're going to get every 2 months. I plan to make a trip to Sam's every 6 months. The one trip, because Sam's Club is almost 3 hours one way, with traffic and everything to get there, and then 3 hours back. So when I did make the one Sam's Club run, I have a mid-size SUV. I literally packed it. I took my daughter with me. We packed it from the bottom of the floor all the way to the ceiling, from the trunk all the way to the front. And I mean, I even filled the wheel wells. I wasn't playing on that trip. I was like, if this is a 6-hour round trip, we're going to make every square inch of this car count. So we still have some of those supplies. It's 6 months later. We still have some of ours. We're down to the last of the Sam stuff, but I was able to buy in bulk. Not everybody can do every 2 months. I know that. But if you can go, if you're going once a week now, I'm hoping that the tips and tricks I'm going to teach you are going to be able to help you so that you can go to the grocery store every 2 weeks. If you're going every 2 weeks, can you go every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks? Can these tricks and tips help you so that you can go further between trips? Because if you can go further, you're going to have cost savings, because what the prices are, if you go today, aren't going to be the prices you see in 2 weeks. So that money you save, and that's what I found. And I was really surprised. The first trip I did for Costco was in January 2024. And I was really surprised because I really didn't think on it. I mean, I know what our family uses every month, but I really didn't think about, okay, there's going to be extra because we're not going to use all of this. So like when I bought the flour, I got the Gamma buckets, and so I really didn't think about the fact of, okay, we're going to have extra flour, we're not going to need to buy as much the next 2 months. And so some of the months we didn't hit the max budget that I had set. We still stayed under. So those are some of the things I've learned. I'm going to show you now, this is how I could do what I did in November, which is, okay, the grocery prices are sky high. How can I revamp this? And one of the ways I did that was, you'll see in the shot, this is a pantry inventory I do. And how this works is that I put down everything. And I mean, you're going to inventory your whole house. You're going to put this together on a Google Sheet. If you don't know how to use Google Sheets, it's part of if you have a Gmail account, it's part of that. It's completely free. It's easy to use. And the best part is you can have this at your fingertips on your phone. So if you have a smartphone and you're at the grocery store, you can quickly pull up your inventory. This is not the one that I use in the store. I'll show you that. This is the house one. And how this works is, so you inventory absolutely everything in the house. And you'll notice I have a notes column over here. And you'll see that I list like all-purpose flour. And how this works is, if you've got whatever size quantity you have, let's say you have 5-pound bags, so you have 4 of them, you just do this. Now, whoever's cooking, if they open one of your bags, they do this. And I do it in pencil. Next to this, sitting on, I have this pinned to I have a magnet that this sticks to the refrigerator. My normal copy stapled. And mine isn't clean like this. Mine looks like a disaster. Because people with sticky fingers and everything else, which is why I do it like this. Then the person marks it off. Then when I go to do the inventory to update my new one, which is on my phone always, I know that I only have 3 5-pound bags left. So I know that if I find flour on sale, I know how much space I have in my house, because I've really gone through and organized the house, which I'll show you how I did that. Because I didn't want our house to feel like a grocery store. I only have 700 square feet, so you've got to be savvy, smart, and really clever with how you do it so that you can store this stuff, but yet you don't feel like you're living in a grocery store. And so then I mark that. So then I update my right on my phone when I'm standing in the kitchen. I just update the pantry list on the doc that I've created on Google Docs, which is the same place I created this. Now, let's say you don't use 5-pound buckets. That's why I have the note column. So I can put here, because I have the big buckets down there with the gamma lids, I can put, you know, that when I can make myself a note, I'm down to a half a bucket, or I'm down to 1.5 buckets, or whatever it is, I can make a note. I just train anybody who cooks. Everybody knows in the family that everything is marked with these hashtags. You know, if we have, you know, X, you can figure out, you know, are you going to count by quantity of apples, by pound, by each individual apple? That's all your call. And that depends on your family, which gives you a little bit more flexibility. But that note column really came in handy, because if somebody else is cooking and they ask for something, sometimes they'll be cooking and they'll see olive oil and they'll make a note, hey, can we get this oil too? Because the recipe calls for XYZ or whatever. And there's lots of room for them to write. And this helps, because that's one of the big things that helped me, was to use the tools at my disposal. Not just how do I organize the house, how do I how am I going to store all this stuff. It was also training my family that they're used to doing this. They've always done this with me, the pantry list. But now I've really ramped it up, because now I'm going every 2 months. If we're out of something, I'm not going to the store to get it. It's just, well, let's substitute something, you know. The old-fashioned, if you run out of eggs, what do you got that you can substitute an egg with? You know, the garbanzo bean liquid, aka chickpea liquid. You can use cream and tartar. There's a lot of different things. The other thing I started doing was I started going through cookbooks. This is one of my saving graces. I love cookbooks. I always have. I have a bunch of them. One of my favorite always has been Amish cookbooks and cookbooks from before 1950, like this one. I got this one used at a bookstore. It was actually in the free bin because nobody wanted it. It doesn't look very good, but if you look at the back cover, it's all full stains too. That tells me somebody loved this cookbook and used a lot of these recipes. That's what that tells me. So it's got to be a good cookbook. This was before 1950. I have found, especially if you don't want to use a lot of sugar, a lot of processed food. Before 1950, a lot of these cookbooks have a lot less sugar, a lot of less processed food. And the reason is because before 1950 was the World War II, when our grandparents, great-grandparents, the rest of our family lived through rations because of the World War. And then before that was the Great Depression. They had to ration. Before that, in the Midwest especially, they were homesteaders. They were starting the farms, etc., and grocery stores are far and few between. So these cookbooks are a lifesaver. And what I do is I go through. I used to make recipe cards and have boxes and everything. That's not going to help me anymore. So I do Google Sheets. There's different programs, and I can show you in a future video how I do it. And you can type up these, and then they're right there on your smartphone. I'd show you my phone, but my phone's recording me right now. And so then you can go through your phone and pull up different recipes if you're staying in the store. And the other thing I'm going to urge you to do is make a list of what your family eats. Just literally hate, and just go down a bunch of lists. And, you know, if you've got a picky eater in the family, you know they're not going to want a certain thing. Figure out how to put that ingredient in. If the rest of the family will eat it and it's a cheap ingredient, you know, I've done that. When my kids were little, they hated squash. Absolutely hated squash. To this day, they have no idea how much squash they ate as a child because squash was cheap. Same with zucchini. You put it in the blender and you blend it up, and it's just like applesauce. You can add it to so many things, and you could really get clever with how you stick things in different ingredients. And please pop a comment down below if you've done that to your children. My kids would probably be shocked how many things I've, healthy food, stick it in a recipe, and they had no idea Mom did that in the kitchen. The other thing I love to use is Amish cookbooks. They're a little bit harder to find. You can tell this is my favorite because, well, it doesn't look the greatest. It's used a lot. And same thing. They're used to making, especially if you have a larger family, making meals in large quantities. The other thing I do is when I make one meal, I make an identical meal with everything that I can freeze. So if it's something that's freezable, that's made at the same time as the first batch. Then in my freezer, I've got almost a prepared meal or a complete meal. Lasagna. I'll make 2 pans of lasagna, one in the freezer. That helps me because then we're not prone to stop at fast food. If we're out and we're running late, whatever, I know it's okay because when I get home, I can quickly grab that lasagna. The basics of how I started this, why I started it, as you can tell, I'm fighting a cold, so my voice is starting to go. So I'm going to wrap this up. My next video, I'll cover more of how I do these different tips and tricks and ways I'm able not to go to the grocery store as often. Definitely leave me a comment below if you want me to do a video on how to use Google Sheets, Google Docs, how can you use them with your phone. I'm glad to share that. And definitely leave me a comment below and tell me tips and tricks and things you're doing currently to be able to survive these grocery prices, because they're really high. Hopefully they start coming down soon. But in the meantime, we all got to try and figure out how to get through it. So it was great to talk to you. I hope you have a lovely day. Talk soon. Bye.